All right. Welcome, everyone. All right. It looks like we got a good group of 12 people. So I think this will be a nice workable group.
Sam?
Yes.
Hello, Sam.
Yeah, I'm
here. This is Deb Police, and I'm looking at the computer, and I have my phone, and unfortunately, they're in two different breakout sessions.
Yes. You are in, I think, breakout room 1. So feel free to, all I'm going to be doing is I'll be taking notes on the PowerPoint slides. So there's really nothing to see besides just discussion or correcting my spelling mistakes. So nothing here to see, just this is all going to be, and if you want to speak, just find a good moment to speak up, because I won't be able to call on you. So for everyone else who is joining by video, I will share my screen. So just give me a second, and you will be able to watch me type live. So according to my notes that you'll see here is, we're looking for a few 1 or 2 sentence pitches tying all the aspects together. And remember the previous slide, that slide 6. We had natural environment, river, waterfront, connectivity, historic character, arts and culture, tourism. And also, I think there is something that probably I think we can add to this vision slide, which maybe wasn't mentioned as strongly in our town meetings, is really, I think, business and economy beyond tourism, which is something that we've clearly heard. But maybe was not focused on in our discussions with the municipalities, so and the Planning and Zoning Commission. So,
I'd like to comment on that, Sam.
Sure. Yeah.
First of all, when the word connectivity came up at the beginning, what went through my mind, it wasn't just bicycle trails, but electronic connectivity, which I think is key for the future of this region, is to have improved and better electronic connectivity. And the reason I believe this, and that ties into your comment, is that I've been thinking about it, and we want this to be an attractive place to live. I think that's the big vision. And to be an attractive place to live, it also has to be an attractive place to work. And one of the secrets, I think, in the future is going to be, for this region at least, is to make it an attractive place for home occupations. And the secret in home occupations is really innovation. You have to be tied in, ability to reach other places, especially through the web. And you have to be the kind of people that is willing to step out into new directions. So what you want is an innovative population, which is facilitated if you make it easy for people to do their own business. And hopefully you'd have the, big boys up in Hartford making it easy from a tax point as well, because that's what's driving the young out of here, is high expenses and difficulty in regulatory difficulties. But anyway, hence important to have good data connectivity and to make it possible for people to want to be in this region, because we welcome home businesses.
I think that vision sort of touches upon sort of the new sort of dispersed economy that we're all becoming acquainted with. It existed before. Our region has always been a lifestyle region that's attracted people who could locate anywhere. But now that the pandemic has forced many more people to work from home, it has afforded many more people the ability to be able to locate where they want to be versus somewhere where the job is. So I think that's a very timely comment.
I notice every time I pick up a local paper and I see a write-up of some local person, I said, "Oh my God, that person lives here." It's a person we haven't known about, but they're, they have a worldwide reputation, and, they have essentially connections elsewhere. They work out of their homes. So we have a tremendous strength in that area, and we need to capitalize on that. And I'm sorry I didn't think of this earlier.
No, I think that's very timely, and I think that is a key for a vision for this region as a place where data connectivity and potentially other supporting services can allow people who can live anywhere in the country or the world to live here. They encourage them to live here. I think that's a really good vision. Of course, we're trying to craft a vision that sort of takes in a lot of the elements that are very diverse. The natural environment, which includes our river, our waterfront, and our forests, but also the unique elements of our history and character that makes this place unique and different than other parts of the country and the world. And of course, tourism is a byproduct of the fact that we live in an attractive place. People want to come to visit here because it's attractive. So,
Sam, I think one of the things we miss is when we talk about our region, you often talk about regions in terms of culture, but we don't talk about them in terms of community. And I think what people come for culture is more of an experience, but community is what they come to be a part of. And so community is something that is ever evolving. As new people move into town, they impact the fabric of our community, whether they volunteer or they bring their business relationships here, or they come and they bring family for vacation. So I think we're kind of looking at it from the outside in, and I don't know how to express this, but I think we need to look at it from the inside out, so that people that are coming here for tourism are coming to experience our sense of community, and people that are coming here for business are coming so that their employees can feel a sense of community. And those that come and have a choice to work anywhere are coming here for that sense of community. But I think when we talk vision and we're trying to come up with a statement, we're always looking for our culture, but I don't think that our area has a sense of culture as much as it has a sense of community.
I would agree with Mary's comments strongly. I think, Sam, that is one of the reasons that when people move here, you often hear them talk about the fact that they moved here because there is that community feel. Some people would call it, New England charm, that kind of thing. But really, it's that your town is special and maybe unique, and that it feels like home.
I agree, Frank. And I think one of the things is, I work with a diversity group here in town. It's almost become cross-cultural, where the sense of community sort of supersedes everything else. And regardless of where people come from or what they bring to the table, there's a respect from everybody involved. And there really is a very strong sense of community. And I've worked in a number of towns in the county, and it's the same no matter what town you go to. There's a very strong sense of community.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and is that this is about a region of communities, and a region of strong communities, because even the city of Middletown, which is our largest municipality, it is still small. It is a community. It's not a faceless metropolis. So I think a vision for our region is a vision of communities and a diverse of people of diverse backgrounds, creating strong communities.
I am new here. I was in the last workshop last week. One of the New Yorkers, or now former New Yorker, who moved here during the pandemic in Middlefield.
Welcome, great. We're happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. I just wanted to piggyback off the ideas of this community thing, because that's, a large reason I moved here is to be closer to my family. I grew up in Connecticut, but specifically this region, there's a number of things that drew me here. And I think New England really has, outside of this area, for sure, New York, New England, and they go to the Midwest, people often think of New Englanders as being quite cold. So I think this region being community oriented and maybe a friendlier part of New England could be a good sell for this area. And the other thing for me, stepping away from the community part, is I'm really love the environment. I feel like this area has a lot of great stuff, like we talked about with the forest and the waterfront. I think I'd love to be a part of, and I think other people probably my age who are leaving New York, other Brooklynites like myself, would love to be more involved in stewardship of those lands, and in taking real pride in like making them more of a draw for ecotourism. So my 2 cents.
Well, thank you, Haley, and welcome to the Lower Connect River Valley. I think
you.
Bill had wanted to speak, so go ahead, Bill.
You know, this is a phrase we can't use, but it's a catchy one. It's the company that was going to develop the Coliseum block in New Haven. They were called Live, Work, Learn, Play, and I just like the phrase, and I'm sure it's copyrighted, so we can't use it. But maybe
they stole it from someone else.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, maybe somebody can jump off of that.
So live, work,
learn, play.
Learn, play. Well, that catches a lot of it. That catches Wesleyan. It catches our parks and our rivers and our recreational amenities. We and like the one thing that, like in seeing Megan's presentation, the summary of our discussions with the planning and zoning commissions, was I wanted to capture the business side of it, because we do have significant employers in the private sector, and that's something which, you know, we can attract businesses here, because if their employees want to be here, the businesses want to be where talented employees are located. Mm-hmm. So, but I think it's fine. Live, work, play is not a copyright infringement. As far as.
So I will just add my 2 cents here, Sam. I work with a lot of small towns, and one of the things I always ask my clients is, what's your plaid? And they kind of look at me like I'm crazy, but I say, when you take a color that represents everything that's a part of your community. So everybody, you know, if the outdoors are important to them, obviously that's green. Commerce, for some reason, they normally end up picking blue. For community pride, they pick red. When you interweave all these colors, where's your strength? So is there more green than blue? Is there more red than yellow? And when you start creating that visual, every town comes up with a different plaid that makes up their community. And I think we could look at that from a community perspective, and then a regional perspective based on where the strengths in certain areas are. But it's an interesting exercise to run through as people sort of give different elements of their community a weight and a color that they assign with that. And you can tend to come up with, you know, a visual of what is visually representative of your area.
So we started something like that with this map here, trying to categorize, you know, what we heard from the those planning and zoning commission meetings, and trying to come up with some categories. But then we did start doing some plaiding where we had overlap, and so, you know, we could potentially take this and take that plaid metaphor a little further, and also I think it comes from a realization that not all that, you know, we have the towns interact with one another, but they all don't do all the same things and have the same roles. But they all have certain commonalities, but they also all have differences, and that's good, because not every town should be downtown Middletown, and not every town should be the reservoir land of Killingworth. So you know, there's different functions for different places, and that's good planning. So,
Sam, can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, Debbie.
Okay. This area has a little bit of everything. We have the shoreline, we have the river, we have the lake areas, including Killingworth and Lake Hayward and all of the lakes areas. We have Blue Trail Range, we have historic centers, we have bike trails, we have the communities that you want to live in, and I think we should play that up. Oh, we have the wineries.
I like what you just said. We have the community you want to live in.
Yeah, I'm gonna bold that, because I think that is a very pithy way of saying like what we want to say. Like, I think Susie just raised her hand. Go ahead, Susie.
Hi, I hope you hear me and I don't crap out too much with my weak connection here. I just wanted to, when thinking about business, I wanted to just mention that we are within a really kind of a gateway to a very large region that is relatively dense with people. So in terms of business, we could be, we are only 2 hours from New York, a major center. We're only 2 hours from Boston, another major center. And we're also within a day's drive of Canada, which can be a major market for businesses. And our region, because of Route 9 and our connection to 95 and our trains, we are maybe a little better connected transportation-wise than some other areas of Connecticut. Thank you.
And I'll just add to that, Susie. This is what I think is going to happen is that one issue that we've had in Connecticut is air travel and our connections, our connections through flights. Well, what 2020 has shown us is that business travel can adapt, and by and large, a lot of those meetings that business travel is about can be done virtually. So the lack of, the fact that we're far from JFK, or we're not, JFK is within reach, but it's not easy trip. Maybe that matters less now. And so the big international travel or even transcontinental travel is a little less important now that we've all learned to live through virtual meetings or be able to do our business through virtual meetings. And so I think that's also important, is that that's one thing that the Connecticut, Bradley is a good airport, but it will never have what New York or Boston has. But I think we can now get by without that. So, I see Tatiana, you have a comment.
Of New Jersey.
Say that again.
At New Jersey.
Oh, at New Jersey. Yeah, no, like, and I think access to the New York Metro is and this build off of, I guess, Tatiana and Susie's comments, is that you can go to New York if you need to for business. You can get there for the airports, but maybe you don't need to go there as much as you used to. It's still there when you need it, but you don't need it as much because we've all learned to adapt without travel.
This is a little off the subject, but I read an article about a little plane port in Orlando attracting high-end investors with electric planes that are good for like an hour flight. And I thought, Chester, I've been fighting for Tweed for 25 years, and I've raised the white flag. I think Martin Looney and what's the Republican Senate leader that just retired, Len Fasano.
Fasano.
I think they won, and we're never going to get Tweed, but maybe a bunch of smaller with that whole market of smaller planes doing individual flights or small group flights.
Let's go to Beth Emery, please. Oh, you're muted. Unmute yourself and then go ahead. And I think we have about 5 minutes left. So.
Okay, sorry about that. I just was going to say, in terms of it being a great region, we really do need that electronic infrastructure. And so I think it ties into that. Yeah, people can work from home now, but not if we don't do a better job with that infrastructure. I think that Bill.
Yeah, and yeah, so electronic. Yeah, so that's a great point. Looks like we're being called back to the main session.
Sam?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
In addition to some of those great things that were mentioned earlier about the region, I would suggest we add jobs, innovation, education, and a skilled workforce, because that is really quite an unusual mix for.
And the trade port, Frank. Everybody forgets that we're part of the trade port.
And the trade port, right. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mary.
Sorry about that. I was muted. Even the most, you know, I use Zoom every day, and I still forget to unmute myself. So I thought that was a very good discussion we had regarding the visioning, and now let's go to the themes. And I also would like to touch upon additions for branding as well, because a lot of these things overlap in a way which is hard to differentiate, and I want to make sure we get all the input. So as we're creating these recommendations for the RPC and for the draft document, that we have your input. So, all right, let me go to sharing my screen.
I guess while you're doing that, I'll just make a comment. When I saw the particular example for Hartford, I said, gee, you know, that could just as easily apply to us here, those 4 words, as to what we're trying to convey. And yet I was struck because Hartford and our region are so totally different. So how could we have a, you know,
human goals, human values?
Huh? Yes. How could we make the difference a little clearer?
Yeah, and I think so I think what's important there is that you're right. They pick themes that are more applicable and more universal to lots of places. And yes, the capital region is very different, but they're also very similar, and they're only right next door. But they are much more urban, and they're much larger.
And those are aspirational goals, of course, for them. They're, you know, it's not necessarily that that's what they really are currently. So
right.
I would say that it's a matter of scale too. And the CROG region is so big that they have probably a larger rural area in their region than their urban area. I mean, how many towns do they have in the CROG region? And it goes all the way up through Granby and Simsbury, and to the west, it's very, very rural. They have the Farmington River, which is wild and scenic. It's not so much different than ours. It's just such a difference in scale because of Hartford.
Yeah, and going back to these slides, you know, vibrant, green, connected, competitive, and this gets to as was mentioned in the presentation. We're going to be coming up with a regional land use map. And one of the concepts that was presented to the Regional Planning Committee is it was a concept from Camden County, New Jersey, showing different land uses, but as themes, and how land uses that support various themes. And I think it may almost go to the level of gimmick, but I think it also is catchy and could be useful in this context. And so that's really what we're trying to think of right here. Obviously, when we talk about words like connected, connected can mean many different things. Whether it's connected by transportation corridors or services like Amtrak, connected by through high-speed internet and to the web and to data. Connected through nature and healthy ecosystems that are connected to one another. So those themes can be woven through many different types of land uses in that map, but also can be used in the branding of various elements of our region. And so, you know, this is let's see, I'm looking at the notes that have been provided for me, and I think these are the advice here is for these themes to be more on the bigger level, as opposed to not to be as nuanced. But I think that observation and that or critique of a capital region, I think is I think appropriate in that, you know, they are very different from us, but those themes that they identify, those four, could apply to us as well. And overall, the Regional Planning Committee is going to be making a decision as to whether or not we what themes we'd use, or if we pursue this route. So if people have that critique of what Capital Region did and don't think that's of value, that's important feedback to hear from you as well. Because from on a staff level, we thought this was an interesting approach, but I want to hear from you.
Sam, one of the things that I have noticed, and so I have a number of commissions that I work with, both conservation and inland wetlands, is a real change in attitude from ownership of land to stewardship of land. And there is really a long-term vision by a lot of my board and commission members now that they are tasked not with owning and managing, but in being good stewards and really protecting property for future generations and making sure that that use is a use that is something that's going to have a long-term benefit. And that's not something I saw 15 years ago.
And I like that idea of stewardship, because stewardship, that could be about land, but that also could be about our economy. That could be about our community, and making sure that we're making choices for our community, let's say for our local economy, that are not about today at this moment. It's about 10 years from now as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like that idea, that concept of stewardship, because also these plans, whether it's your town POCD or a regional plan of conservation development, they are supposed to be 10-year documents. So they are long-term in scope. And so stewardship, you know, to get us somewhere is I think, I think stewardship is active conservation. It's not.
It's nurturing.
Mm.
It's evolving. It's evolving from one area to another, where you were first looking at ownership, and now it's evolved to something greater. So whether it be our business or our ability to understand and move with change, it's an evolutionary process that rather than a change, and adapting right to those types of things.
And I definitely like that word nurturing, because it really moves it out of the ownership and coveting something to creating something more. And that's something I really have felt a change in the last decade.
Yeah.
That really speaks to the word resiliency too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sam?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think one of the things too, it's a key word, but it hits a number of points, is preservation, whether it's natural resources, history, our community, preserving why we're here, but also going through and adapting and growing to include other people who come here and move here to this region for the things that we have and we've been maintaining.
Mm.
The other thing I would like that's special to this region, as as contrasted to the Hartford region, is we really have what's a multi-centered community or region. That's the word I'm looking for. We're not, I mean, Middletown is our largest urban area, but we have Old Saybrook. We're not, you know, focused on a single center the way the Hartford region is. And I think that's something we want to maintain and exploit.
I don't think we should lose touch with that picture I have in my head of the light of Megalopolis with a hole in it. and being that whole. Because that's who we're competing with.
Right.
That's a great visual.
It is a great visual.
Instead of black, I'm going to say green. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think this whole conversation goes back to the sense of community.
Absolutely.
And any community, to be a true community, has to have a sense of warmth and caring. And that's where that word stewardship comes from. It's just more of an outward sense of being rather than looking only at hard, cold facts and looking at dollars and cents or looking at construction or development. It's really more of a holistic view.
Well, and if you actually, pragmatically look at the difference between us and the capital region, is that our region still, by and large, has a lot of volunteer services, volunteer emergency services. Lots of some of our small towns are run on the backs of volunteers, much more so than paid staff, and I think that sort of volunteerism and is something that makes us different and is part of the community. Like,
well, it's more about a quality of life.
Sam, I was going to mention that we talked some time ago about it, but the term resiliency, not in the traditional term as it's used now, meaning, for the waterfront and sea level rise and all that, but resiliency as an area, as a region. Issues happen, COVID happens, things happen, this area responds, and it responds in a really thoughtful and intelligent way. And so I think the idea of being a resilient region with resilient people and with resilient employers and employment, development, those things, I think are really important to include.
Would adaptable be a better word, or
adaptable is not bad. I kind of like the resiliency because it almost seems like adaptable is
compromised.
Yeah, it's compromised, exactly.
I like Tanya's word that she just put up too, agile.
Agile, yeah.
Agile. Yeah, agile is good.
As long as we don't use the word pivot. If I hear pivot one more time.
Yeah, no, not pivot.
But
not
yeah,
pivot. I like resilient. This was something we talked about. The regional planning committee did for many months, and the concept was that the plan would kind of have a theme of resiliency, not just resiliency, with sea level rise and that kind of thing, but resiliency as being a resilient community. And so forth.
I think it goes back a little bit to our conversation from the last meeting too about the pockets of poverty that aren't seen. And I think that we're not seeing them because our communities are doing such a good job of really filling some of those needs, whether it's volunteer food banks or volunteer clothing banks. And so unlike the cities where poverty becomes more public, I think our poverty is more private, which is why we only find out about it when there's a crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That goes back to that sense of community and neighborly, right? Being helpful with each other, and that could stretch out the region as well, right?
But I could see, if we wanted to do this sort of capital region like theme idea, this idea of community, as a theme.
I agree, Sam. I think that's a really good, if you're looking for just individual words, community is probably the first one on the list.
But I think, go ahead, Chris.
Volunteerism. That's one thing, that I find even with people who visit here or have homes, that either they come for the summer, the fire department came out, and Thanksgiving, my neighbor called the fire department and they said, oh, well, they get paid to do that. And I said, no, they don't. They come out and they're volunteers. They left their Thanksgiving dinner table And I think that's an important point of what makes us different. And as you were saying, even with poverty, I mean, people are always helping people here.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I grew up in the West Hartford area. I didn't know half my neighbors. You know, now I know more neighbors than I probably ever wanted to know. I love them all dearly, but it's just a different way of life. It's, you know, the garbage man does not, you know, come to your backyard and empty your trash. And I mean, but your neighbor will, you know, or help you out. And that's something that makes us different and makes this a desirable place to live.
So I'm just going to start this recapping. So I see with community, we have a lot of the human elements of our region, and with some of the discussions about resiliency and agile and thoughtful, it comes to a little bit about this approach to supporting small businesses that are more adaptable. If I think a very important theme that I think we need to touch upon that we haven't really is nature and natural environment. We have mentioned it, but that is that's one of the big reasons a lot of people live here is because they want to be in the country. They want to be, they don't want to be in the city. So if we were to pick words that we would say, you know, obviously green is one of them, but it's,
yeah. Actually, yeah, Capital Region used that, and actually that's a pretty good simple term, green.
I'm going to take something from Haddam, like they're talking about the green blue way, you know, talking about, but also the river, but our natural resources are a key driver of why a lot of people want to be here. So so I think we need to find it. That's also the important theme, and that speaks up to the stewardship. Is that we want to make sure that our preserved lands are well stewarded. It's not like, oh well, you know, the land trust bought the land. No, it has to be maintained, and we need to be conscious that we're keeping our natural resources strong in ecosystems.
What about the word nature? Just nature.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Better than green, maybe.
Yeah.
The other thing, Sam, is I think it's important to as far as the observation is that the region is also changing. It's evolving. It's with this, things are being developed and there's we're not stagnant.
And we're not static either.
Yeah. I think that the notion that this is a historic pattern, it's not totally new.
Yeah. But I think that sort of we have that, you know, historic heritage
building on it.
Sure. But we aren't stagnant. We aren't static. We're always changing. And I think we obviously the theme can't be not something because that doesn't work. But I think that idea of being agile because we don't want a brand that we're stodgy and we don't change and, you know, we're stuck in our ways. Of course, you know, we want to preserve what what's good and what makes us special, but we want to be evolving. We want adaptation. We want agility. I think those are all.
I keep coming back to the word explore because no matter what we're talking about, whether we're talking about green space or community or resiliency, I keep coming back to that word explore. One of the brochures that we're doing now for our trails, the title of it is Get Out, which could be taken a number of ways. But when all the pictures on the cover are people mountain biking and kayaking and hiking and on the top of Great Hill Mountain and out on the lake, Get Out takes on a whole new term. And if you know Portland, you know that our sign says come on over and our brochure says Get Out.
So evolve is an excellent word. I mean, not evolve. What was it? The word you just used?
Explore.
Yeah. Explore.
And so these themes as sort of a brand, it just like, I think these are the building blocks of how you would craft it with words like, I like the idea of explore because it does touch upon many different things. And it does beckon people to come here.
Discover.
Yeah.
I like nature and nurture. Something about, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Got it both.
Yeah, you got to avoid the Hallmark card shop.
But we can have a little fun with this and branding, of like a play on nature and nurture, a play on get out, that's from a commercial perspective, that's how branding works. Is you get people